So once again, I'm here to say a few words. And since last my blah blah, that was on 26th of March, today is 28th. And I check the website where Peter and Tree put up put on what I've said. And it seems, there are people watching, and people express, they really appreciate and they enjoy listening and watching. So I thought, whenever I have time, I will sort of come and record and say a few words. So, as I mentioned last time, I had a quite rough day on that 27th, as I went down to check Sera Mey social service, where the health for the Sera Mey monk and also the public is cared by the Sera Mey social service. And some of the activities are not very thoughtfully or very sensibly, carried out. So I was quite upset, and I had a quite, rough time, as I mentioned. And one thing which I was quite unhappy was, I didn't say very clearly you have to buy all those gears for the protection to the nurses in case our monk or monks get ill. These monk nurses have to handle them. So they're in charge of the Sera Mey social service. There are 3 monks. And when I was there, I asked them this, no, we haven't bought it yet. So I was really fearful or very, unhappy with that. So, and the poor monks there, yesterday they went and they bought, I think, 15 or 20 sets of, the protection. And so today I arranged a qualified doctor who lives not very far from here, come and to demonstrate how to wear all those gears. So now they are doing it. So, and also, because some monasteries, like in Sera Mey and also in Mongkut, Devung Loseling Monastery, and they decided they will not provide food from the main kitchen. Instead, they will distribute all the, what you call the dry foods, like rice, flour, and so forth, and then individual houses, or we call kamsins, or individual, the groups, they can cook. But I had quite a long discussion with the Sera Mey in charge of the kitchen, and I myself taught a lot and look at all the pros and cons. And so not just me, also some other monasteries, not just Sera Mey, but also Ganden, Sopa Ganden, 2 monasteries, Ganden Shase Changse and Tebung Gomang, and they and also decided for the time being continue supply food from the main kitchen. But we have to change some of the procedures. For example, monks going to come to morning to pick up bread and the tea and the lunch and dinner. So those young monks coming to pick up those breakfast, lunch, dinner, they keep distance from each other. They don't socialize, don't chat very much in front of them. So all those things yesterday we prepared, and today, this morning, I and some of our in-charge monks, we have, to make the decisions. Now, the one decision which I'm keeping, not apply yet, is the monks who are going to come to cook. We have main 3 cooks, but we have 25 monks every month, every day, coming to help them. So now this need to be changed, but it is not easy to change straight away because we have to provide accommodation, day to stay, So those are the things what I'm doing now today. So the connection with these things, what I want to say with the Dharma, related to the Dharma, understanding and applying the Dharma, the practice and practice and understanding. It is clearly stated by one of those great Indian masters called Dhammakirti in his very nice text, Buddhist Logic and Epistemology. And he said, I'll quote, when all the causes and conditions are complete, the result is definite. Result is definite. So this statement can be taken in both ways. For example, the causes and conditions that we are trying to put together, not to have this virus to the community and to the individual. If all the causes and conditions are met, then it is, I have a strong belief the result will be definite. On the other hand, if we haven't put all the causes and conditions, then no matter whatever we do in a prayer or all those things, when the other side is, all the other causes and conditions are met, other side is the virus to come, then it is going to come. So we have to accept it. And so that is really something we need to. Then when we talk about causes and conditions, today what I talk about just small things, those are the visible causes and conditions that we can think about, and we can arrange, we can put together. But from the Buddhist point of view, and I think that is really true, there are many causes and conditions which are not visible for us, and particularly not the immediate causes and conditions. For example, this disease, this virus, started in China. Some people talk about, in China, that the particular place where maybe in many other places, but in that particular place believed to be started, there are so many live animals are kept. And when the customers are ready to buy, and either immediately kill there, and without that much hygiene or consideration of the welfare of the animals and so on and so forth. This, what I've seen and what I've read. I've read several articles. I mean, here it's not blaming to the China or Chinese people. No, not at all. We're just talking about the situation, how it started. And there's one, I think it is not television broadcast. It is definitely very, from UK, very conservative, not political party, but in the ideological, I think run by two guys. I don't know their name. And 2 days ago, that guy was really, really onto it, saying this must stop. Eating almost every moving creature and not having any kind of hygiene or consideration for the health. And he was interviewing one lady from, Chinese lady, I think lives in UK or United States, somewhere there. And she had been the, what you call the campaigning for this to reduce and, if it's possible, completely stop for many years. And she went on list of different animals, how they put together, keep together, and most of them are alive. So what I'm talking, these are what we are talking about, very visible. Say if those are the causes, very visible causes. But from the Buddhist understanding, there are many invisible causes. And some of the causes might be, created or created for many generations. It may not be just instant like that. It may trigger like the driving a car. When the ignition keys turn, then it started. But before to start it, then there must be fuel in the fuel tank, and all those wires should be connected, and so on and so forth, and like that. So therefore, I think that what today my main, the point what I'm making here is when the causes and conditions are met or come together, then we have not that much choice. We have to face it, either positive or negative. In the both cases, it's not just negative way; it is also in the positive too. So in here, we all try, and it seems all the countries and all the leaders, all the experts on this, the virologies, and we all are trying to reduce, and so we all should work together. But and that is the how causes and conditions may come together and may stop. And this is my hope in here. In here, my direct connection is in here to work and to talk to the monks, and so I will give you just a small joke. In yesterday, I think morning around 10, that is my first time directly, not video, what you call the recording I talked to the Sera Mey monks, and before, most of my connection to the Sera Mey monks are only writing. I write, 1, 2, 3 different things. But yesterday was my first sort of, talk to the monks, the seriousness of the illness, and what are the most effective for the time being, and so on and so forth. So I made about 20 minutes, in the 4 or 5 small clips. And one of my friends, I think he watched that, and he also speaks good English. And with a joke, I think around afternoon here in the UK, around 5:30 or around that time, in the UK, I didn't see that. In the UK, there was this, the statement made by Boris Johnson saying he got it, tested as a positive. And this monk sent me a small clip about that. Boris Johnson got tested positive. And so his main joke was saying, it seems you are following your prime minister. So anyway, that is how, for me, it was quite an interesting joke, But anyway, that's the thing. So, we all should try to put all the causes and conditions, those visible causes and conditions that we are able to do, and put together. Then, after that, if virus comes, then act according to that situation, that situation. And that's what I'm, my last 2 or 3 clips, that's what I'm doing here. And this is what, the teachings of the Buddha. And another nice story may go with this in the Jataka. I think in one of those sutras, it said, I think one of the Buddha's, can't remember who was that, close relative was very fearful, going to die. And Buddha put that person in his begging bowl. This is the story. I don't know how his begging, the size of his begging bowl, or the size of that person in his begging bowl. But when Buddha checked after a few hours, I don't know, one day, I think a few hours, when he opened his begging bowl, that person is already dead in his begging bowl. So that is what it says. It says, when the causes and conditions are met, even if you are safely stay in the Buddha's begging bowl, it's going to happen. And that is really something like that. So today's my main point is, yes, we all are very fearful, very worried, very concerned, our own lives and our loved ones, or those strangers outside there. But at the same time, just worrying, as Shantideva said very clearly, if there are, what you call the means and methods to solve the problems, then work with them. There's no point being overwhelmed by the worry or concerns. If there isn't that much to be done in terms of creating all the causes and conditions not to face that problem, then again, there's no point being worried. I mean, it's not easy to put into practice. But those are the things we need to gradually think into our thinking process. Bring these statements, like which are quotations, which are quoted from Dhammakitti's text, and this Shantideva's, this text. These are very, very what you call not easy to put into practice, but these are the reality based on reality's advice, and it will be very, very helpful if we contemplate. As I mentioned, it won't work immediately by thinking that, by acting according to those quotations. The illness will not go away immediately, but when it comes to ourselves or to our loved ones, to our friends, families, our thinking or our perspective have a different perspective. We will not completely overwhelmed. We will not completely get lost. And those are the things which is something very useful. And now today, along that, I want to say, of course, many of you do this. In the morning, which I, while I was in the UK leading classes, one of my repeating point is in the morning, before day activities are started. In the morning, spend few minutes, to contemplate how on this very, difficult time, and today, how you are going to spend your day, mentally, physically, and practically. And, set a positive mode, or the positive sort of, mode, or anyway, something like that, which is important. And then engage into daily activities. And every now and then to remind yourself how you set, that morning, your intention, how you're going to spend the day, mentally, physically, and practically. And that is really something useful. I found it very useful. For example, these days, when I woke up around 5 or 5:30, the first thing I do that, just before going to bathroom or anything, just spend a few minutes to set my intention, to set my motivation. On this very, in general, I try to do this as much as I can, but in this difficult time, setting deliberately how you're going to handle this situation. And this particular day, for example, I usually, since this, the situation started, I have now two sort of diary books. One is my normal, what I do, whom I'm going to meet, and all those things. One particularly for this illness, how as a leader of this monastery, abbot of this monastery, and also Sera, and also bigger other, every now and then we talk, different abbots. So I've always put what I'm going to do today. Very helpful. And set my intention. As I mentioned earlier, Sometimes it goes well according to your intention, and sometimes it doesn't. On 26th last March, SML March, 2 days ago, it didn't go well. Although I said my intention, I will not get upset, I will not. But when reality kicks in, that's not the case. So the Abbot is very useful. It's very useful. And so these days, after when I said that my motivation, then go to bathroom, and then first thing what I do, I look at the news. BBC News, that's my source. And occasionally, not that often, one of my Abbot friends, Abbot, also good friends, some of you know, and the American monk, and who is one of the Abbots. And he sends some articles in relation to this illness. And last night he sent me an article from New York Times, and related to, written by I think an Indian scholar, or who was expert in this case, live in India, but contribute to the New York Times. And that article was very, very useful, and I read twice, and I sent to some of the abbots who are able to read, and I asked one of the Sera Mey monks who was quite good at English as well as Tibetan, asked him to translate into Tibetan, although it might be illegal, but circulation is very, very small, so it will not harm the time in English selling. So, because it gives a very nice, what's called the trajectory, what's happening in India. And he says, because now introduce this 21 days or like a lockdown, and during this period, if Indian government acts to get more ventilators, more tests, more those things, then the Indian peak of this illness will be May and June, then it will, and the number will be this. But if Indian government, doesn't do these things, peak will be like this, number will be like that. Just mind-boggling if you look at the numbers. So he said, and this is what I laughed a little bit. He said, all over India, there are only 22,000 ventilators. 22,000 ventilators. So, and 1.3 billion people. 22,000 ventilators is 0 dot something percentage, he said. So, and that is really useful to have those. So this is what I usually, after I do my bathroom, then these days, first thing before I start my morning prayer, I just watch the news, read the news, and to get some relevant to here. And to this morning that I spend my time, maybe 20 to 30 minutes to read that articles, and I immediately send to the monk, to ask him to translate. Hopefully I will get it around 5 or 6 this evening, then I will distribute to the monks. And so that is really something useful to morning to set the intention. And in general, which many of you know, this is what I suggest in the past. But in particular, this kind of hard time, the set motivation, and to really remember on this planet there are 8 billion or 7 billion human beings, not just you, not just you. And out of the 7 billion, many are in a similar situation. And many people are worse situation than oneself. So put some kind of perspective. And particularly people who live in the developed country, you are very fortunate. Very fortunate. Although having that disease this time is very unfortunate, but having all those facilities, infrastructures, and it is really so set some sort of, put yourself in a realistic perspective where you are, how you are, and think about 7 billion human beings on this planet, and compare, so people who live in the UK, people who live in Europe, and the other part of I will not say USA, and other part of the, some of those developed countries, very lucky, when your government is going to provide you some sort of if you are unemployed, it's going to give you some money, and so just very lucky and fortunate. So have all those things, and then it may help us to at least mentally to reduce the fears, concerns, and worries, because these are natural response that we do, but these are not very helpful. These are not very helpful. As I mentioned, my first, I think, starting to talk on this issue, the Western psychologists or Western, what you call the biologists may say, fear is some kind of protection. There's an element of truth on that, but also fear should put into perspective and more be have the good understanding. Just fear alone will not helpful. So so today my main point is, try all your best to put all the causes and conditions not to have the illness to yourself, to your loved one, to your friends, neighbors, and so on and so forth. And hopefully, when the causes and conditions are met, man will get it. But on the other hand, after put all those things, if get it, then have to think, okay, try all my best, and there might be invisible causes and conditions for me to get this. And then have some sort of spiritual perspective, spiritual understanding, all those teachings, many of you have listened, read the book, meet all those great teachers, give those amazing advice. Use them. Those are the time. Now this is the time to use all those, what we have saved for years. And so I want to say this, and I will see you maybe soon. And until then, take care. Bye-bye.